Abbiamo in linea Graham Abbott, che è il direttore d'orchestra dello State Opera per questa versione del Barbiere di Siviglia che sta andando, è già cominciato infatti per quando andrà in onda questa intervista. Good morning, Graham. Thank you for taking this call from Radio Italia Uno, Adelaide.
Thank you, Antonio. It's a pleasure.
So I said you were conducting the orchestra for the opera Barber of Seville. I'm not sure if that's exactly correct. And what does the conductor do?
Well, it's an interesting thing because often people refer to it exactly as you did, that the singers are up on the stage, but then the conductor conducts the orchestra, and maybe we also conduct the chorus, which implies that we don't conduct the principal singers, but they do need us from time to time as well. So basically, I'm in control of everything musical that happens in the production. There's lots of coordination, particularly as we're lucky enough here in Australia that the conductor is usually present through all the production rehearsals, which is over some weeks. So I get used to the way the director wants everything to move on stage and to be timed and paced on stage. And then it's up to me to make that work with what the composer has presented in the score, both for the singer's parts and also for the orchestra's part. And, you know, there might be some times when I might ask the director to change something that he or she wants, you know, if it doesn't quite fit the music. So it's a really collaborative process, but really at the end of the day, the musical product is my responsibility.
Yeah, so you already mentioned several elements. There's the director, the composer, the orchestra, the singers who are on stage. And in fact, often, well, I've taught leading and managing in the past. I always think of the conductor of an orchestra as someone who has to bring everyone together and make it meld into an interesting product. So, well,
that's an interesting thing that you should say, because one of the things I love about opera is that collaborative aspect. It's very different to symphonic conducting in a concert, where it sort of focuses everything on the conductor as being where it starts and ends. And many years ago, when I was working at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, I ran a number of workshops which were done in conjunction with a corporate training company. And the orchestra provided a conductor and an ensemble of players and we did workshops, and we taught corporate executives basic conducting. So they could more understand this idea of being a leader, but also part of a team and not just one or the other. So it's an interesting analogy you should draw from business, because it's very, very much the same.
Yes. Okay. We'll have a chat about that. Well, no, let's go into that. Then we'll talk about your story a bit later on. So we're talking about the Barber of Seville at the moment. You've got the composer, you've got the director, but it's a specific production of the opera. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about this production in its relation to the author, to the composer?
Well, Rossini's score is always the Bible. That's where we start from. That's our text. And Lindy Hume, who's the director for this production, is someone I've worked with many, many times. We've done operas together in Perth, in Melbourne, in Canberra, in Brisbane. You know, we've worked together a lot. And so her job is to make this work on a stage for a modern audience. So we sing Rossini's notes, we sing Stellini's text. The orchestra plays what Rossini has written, but then she decides how it's going to look. She collaborates with the designer of the set and the lighting designer on the appearance that she wants to fulfill her vision for the piece. Then she decides what sort of slant can be put onto something. You know, it's like an actor in a play. You can say to be or not to be 1,000 different ways and give different shades of meaning, even though you're saying the same words. And it's the same in opera. It's a little more restricted because the music gives you the timing more, but she decides whether there'll be a look at this point, or whether someone will run at this point, or stand still at this point, or, you know, or whether there'll be extra characters behind and all of that. So this particular production is very busy, it's very funny, and it's really quite zany. It's very colourful, and it brings out. It's a very silly plot based on a very great play, but what the genius of Rossini in it is that he manages to put into this bubbling, fun music really real human emotions. And one of the things Lindy Hume always does in her productions is cut through tradition and look what are the real human emotions in a piece. And she always manages to find them and makes the piece say something more, no matter how well you know it. And I love that about her work.
Okay, well, can you give us an example of the modernity without maybe giving away too much?
Well, this particular there is a little moment at the end which is quite special, where Count Almaviva finally reveals to Rosina, who he's been wanting to, he's been chasing her for the whole opera, and he knows that she loves him, but she's being held captive by her guardian and all that sort of thing, but he does so pretending to be a student and not a count, because he wants to be sure that she loves him for himself and not for his rank. And right at the end, when he reveals, I'm not Lindoro, I'm actually Count Almaviva, the intention of the original is that she goes, oh, that's lovely. In our production, it's a little more feminist, shall we say, in her reactions. It's like, you are what? And it still fits the music and it still fits the text, but it's something every woman in the audience will understand. But eventually she comes around and thinks, oh, well, I still love you and it's okay. So they still have the happy ending. It's not like we haven't changed the ending or anything like that. But it's just a little realer. It's a little less sort of predictable, and it's a little more realistic, I think. And Lindy always finds those ways of doing that without doing any violence to the original, which I really love, because I wouldn't agree with it if she did. But it's wonderful to see.
Okay, now you mentioned the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. I know you've been here in Adelaide with the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra, but you don't live here now. So how do you organise your professional life like that?
I often ask myself the same question. Basically, I'm a freelance, so I do a lot of things, and particularly in the time of COVID, we've all had to diversify and do different things in different proportions. Primarily, I call myself a conductor and music educator. My background is as a music teacher. I originally trained as a high school teacher, and I taught high school music for 5 years back in the 80s, whilst also wanting to become a conductor. And it's a bit like being an actor. You have to sort of get the breaks and coordinate with the right people and just be in the right place at the right time. And I'm very lucky that at various points of my career, I've been in the right place at the right time and been able to break into conducting. And then in 2003, I started working for the ABC, making music education programs for the ABC, which lasted 15 years. I thought it would only be 1 or 2 years. So I juggled radio and conducting. Now, I stopped working for the ABC a few years ago, and I'm back to just being freelance. So I do conducting engagements. I lead tours for music lovers, so music lover tours, which gives me a chance to give talks and to also have wonderful experiences myself. And I also make podcasts for the Melbourne Recital Centre, and I've made some for Universal Music on classical music, on composers, on musical concepts. I am part of a mentor program for the Melbourne Opera Trust in Melbourne, where I give workshops to young opera singers in media training and also in public speaking. And so, yeah, I've got lots of fingers in different pies, which, like I said, these days you have to do. And no 2 weeks are ever the same.
Yes.
And I like that. People say, what days are you normally free? And I said, well, none really. It's a wonderful way to live. It's sometimes a little precarious, but I moved from Adelaide to Bendigo in the middle of last year, which is my partner's hometown. And that was sort of forced upon us by COVID issues. But I love Bendigo, and it's a beautiful place, and I can still travel anywhere from there, because most of my conducting work involves me to travel anyway.
Yes. Okay. You mentioned combining teaching with the other forms of music, and one of your principals is our Teresa Larocca. I know she teaches in I think 3 high schools in Adelaide.
Teresa and I have known each other for many, many years.
Okay.
We've worked together. I don't want to say how many years, but she's one of my dearest friends, and I love her dearly. And it's wonderful that she's singing the role of Bertha in this production, because Bertha is, if on paper, a very small role. She gets one small aria and some recitative, but in this production, Lindy's given Bertha a lot more to do, and she's far more important to she doesn't sing more, but she acts more. She's more present on the stage. She's involved in a lot of the action with one of the other small characters. And given all her stage experience, and Teresa just is hysterically funny in this. It's a great comic role. And of course, she sings it beautifully, but her comic acting is very funny. And she's also our unofficial Italian language coach as well, because we're all singing, the cast are all singing in Italian, and whilst everyone is well trained, we can always get things better. And so if ever I need to ask about, what's the specific meaning of a word here, because I don't speak Italian, or just to hone the pronunciation, Teresa's always my go-to person when I'm in Adelaide.
You mentioned tours, and I'm presuming they're not only in Australia, probably in Europe, if it's around opera.
It's classical music generally. Some of them are opera tours, some of them are concerts. Sometimes they combine concerts and opera. And I started working for this company, Haylar Music Tours, which is based in Sydney, in 2018, when I stood in at fairly short notice to do a tour to New York for 2 weeks. And of course, that was pretty amazing. We stayed in the hotel that Cary Grant used to live in, and we went to the opera, and we went to concerts. We even saw Hamilton, which I thought was wonderful. And so ever since then, I've been working for them. I had 2 other international tours planned, which, like everything else international, got cancelled. But we've been formulating some tours within Australia as well, some chamber music weekends. And in March, I was here with a group at the Adelaide Festival for a week. I'm coming again next year to the festival with a tour group. And there's also now a well-established chamber music festival, which is held in, of all places, Bendigo. So I am the go-to person to lead that tour, because it's 10 minutes from my house. So it's wonderful, because I give talks to people about what they're going to be seeing for the day, and then I accompany them to all the concerts, and I'm there to answer questions. And apart from the fact that I'm able to help people understand and love music more, I have the best time as well going to all these performances. It's such a privilege.
Yes, it's lovely. And have you had any professional experiences in Italy?
No, I haven't. I am a great Italophile. Venezia is my second home. In fact, I have, as a child, I always loved Venice and never thought I'd ever go there. When I first went there in 1997, it was almost like going home, because I had always loved Venice so much. I've now I've been there many times. I think I've had 7 stays in Venice, and each time I go for a week. And I explore more bits of the lagoon. The last few trips, I've been exploring Torcello a lot. And but generally, northern Italy, I've been to quite a bit, and everywhere from sort of Milan to Venice. Florence, I've been to many times. And on my last trip, I was in Spain, but I started off by finally spending time in Rome, because I'd never really spent a lot of time in Rome. So I had a whole week in Rome, staying very close to the Vatican. And, there's a little bit of art to see in Rome. And I had the most wonderful time. So my next passion for Italy is to explore further south. I really want to go to Naples. I'd really like to explore Sicily as well. There's so much in Sicily I'd like to see, especially the Greek ruins and remains in Sicily.
Yes.
So I adore Italy, and I've been there many, many times. I can't wait to go back.
Okay, well, I'll say that again. Thank you for taking this call from Radio Italia Uno Adelaide. Well, no, let's. I was just as you were talking there. It was sort of something else. What? I'm not sure how to put it as a asking you whether there's been a particular challenge or anything particularly outstanding in organising for this production of the Barber of Seville, Barbiere di Sevilla. Because you obviously
yes.
you're very close to going live now, but at the time of recording.
Yes, we're just about to have our first performance, which by the time this goes to air will have been last night. This has been quite a stressful lead-up time to this season because it was supposed to have happened 18 months ago.
Yeah.
It was originally scheduled for April, May last year, and of course, we all know what happened in April and May last year. Everything, I'd lost a year's work, just like that. And so this production wasn't cancelled. It was just, I think they said suspended. So we had no idea when it was going to happen again. And we were all fearing that it wouldn't happen again because there was so much in the way. Finally, when it was rescheduled for now, it's a 5-week period. 3.5 weeks of rehearsals and a week and a half of performances. So I had set aside from the beginning of October to late November to be here. Of course, when it was originally on, I was living in Adelaide, and in the time in between, I moved to Bendigo. So that created a whole lot of complications too, because with quarantine restrictions, I had to come now 2 weeks earlier and do 2 weeks quarantine before the 5 weeks. So it turned into a 7-week period. So other things I had organised for that 2-week period had to be put on other days. So, but then I didn't know I was actually being given permission to come until a week before the quarantine was due to start. So I didn't know whether I could be here or not. The company didn't know whether they had to find another conductor. It was really quite stressful. But thankfully, SA Health gave me the permission to come. But I then had to do the 2 weeks quarantine, which I was able to do in self-quarantine. I didn't have to do it in a Medi hotel.
Yes.
So the apartment that the company provided for the time was able to be extended earlier for 2 weeks. So it was actually a very comfortable quarantine compared to what many have had to go through. So in that respect, I've been very lucky. But it was a bit stressful not knowing until almost the last minute as to whether I was coming or not.
Yes, I know. Well, Teresa was in a similar situation that she was over the moon when she was able to start rehearsing.
Yes.
Again.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Quite apart from the income that we're all able to have, which is very nice, by being able to work. Just it was the first day of rehearsals was amazing because many of the cast hadn't been in a theatre for 2 years.
Yeah.
And they've been keeping their practice going, not knowing when or if they'd ever be able to perform again. And it's been so stressful for them. I'm very lucky that I've had a few conducting engagements that I've been able to do, just smaller things, not opera commitments. So the privilege of being able to do an opera season is quite amazing, and we'll never take it for granted again, I can assure you.
Cool. Okay. Well, again, thank you, and good luck. I'm not sure if you use that terminology in the
I'm not superstitious. It's lovely. And thank you so much, Antonio. It's been a privilege.